Chapter 381, New and Hot Merchandise. Only 2 days later, Yuna received a report that Homura Midokado and Koharu Udatane managed to break out of Konoha's prison and fled the village, causing Yuna to nod in approval. Naturally, these two old-timers wouldn't be kept in a highly secured place, making it possible for Sasuke to get in and out without being noticed. Unlike Danzo, who could at least back his position as one of Konoha's elders with his strength, Homura and Koharu only had the role due to their age and their friendship with Hiruzen. Well, considering Danzo had implanted Hashirama's cells and 11 Sharingan into himself and only reached a power level that was more or less around an average cage, his true skill probably wasn't that great either. Anyway, Yuna was currently seated in Tsunade's office with a casual smile on her face, while Tsunade was looking at her in irritation. Well, like always, whatever happened, I'm entirely innocent and have not in any shape, form, or fashion participated in whatever is currently irritating you, Tsunade. Tsunade's eyebrow twitched in irritation when she heard Yuna's usual claim of innocence before she pushed the annoying feeling down and started speaking. Well, considering how ridiculous your information network is, I assume you received a report about 2 of Konoha's previous elders breaking out of prison. Yuna rolled her eyes at Tsunade's question and nodded her head in acknowledgement. Obviously. If I wanted to, I could get a daily report about how often that Tsukikage stabbed his life-sized puppet of me he commissioned a craftsman to make, so I obviously know about something as big as a prison break. Tsunade paused for a moment to digest Yuna's answer, but the longer she thought about it, the more confused she became, so she decided to simply ask Yuna for confirmation. I'm sorry, but did I hear you correctly? The Tsukikage has a life-sized puppet of you. MHH. Yeah, he commissioned it after the training dummy that had my picture on it broke apart due to too many kunai getting stuck in it. Why does he keep stabbing objects that look like you? Yuna pondered Tsunade's question for a short moment before shrugging her shoulders. I heard it's for stress relief, but I'm honestly not sure. Tsunade had a lot of questions. For example, she would really like to know how Yuna manages to gather that kind of information, but right now, there was one question that she needed answered more than any other. On a totally unrelated note, do you know the craftsman who did the job? Tsunade cursed herself after that question left her mouth. She wanted to casually guide Yuna through a conversation that would smoothly reveal the name of the craftsman at the end, but the mere thought of stabbing a kunai into a puppet that looked like Yuna made her blurt out the question instantly. Tsunade took a deep breath to calm her nerves before taking a sip of tea to mask how flustered she actually was. Unfortunately, that was a mistake. Of course I know, he is part of my Uzumaki clan, after all. Splurt. Tsunade performed a splendid spit take, which Yuna dodged by ducking her head under the table. Another amazing spit take. You are really getting good at this, Tsunade. Cough cough. Did you just say that someone from the Uzumaki clan made the puppet? Are you fine with that? MHH. Yeah. Why wouldn't I be? Well, isn't it weird that someone is creating puppets that look just like you so that other people can stab them? A contemplative look, combined with deep sadness, appeared on Yuna's face as she slightly lifted her head, giving her a mysterious and melancholic air. Sigh, there is nothing that can be done about that, Tsunade. Just look at me. It is only natural for others to want to gaze at my beauty every day, making them desperate enough to even craft puppets of me. The sad fate of someone as blessed as me. When Tsunade saw Yuna's facial expression, she initially thought there was some complex reason behind Yuna's actions, but as soon as Yuna started speaking, Tsunade's face deadpanned. I see, so you decided to ignore the stabbing part. Geez, Tsunade, you should go with the time. Isn't the Tsukikage's behavior relatively straightforward? It's called being at sundry, Tsunade. Pretty sure it isn't. Yuna was slightly startled by Tsunade's claim, but she quickly calmed down when she realized that Tsunade was already pretty old and might not understand the current trend. I feel like you just thought something rather rude, but whatever. Shall we get to today's main topic? Right, you wanted to know the craftsman that makes puppets of me. The usual headache is kicking in. No, I was talking about the two elders who broke out of Konoha's prison. Oh, right. I completely forgot about that. So what about them? Did you help them escape so you can kill them, Yuna? If I remember, you had a grudge against those two as well. Yuna gave Tsunade a weirded-out look before wagging her finger at her. No, Tsunade. A grudge? Wouldn't that mean that I acknowledge them as something more than an insect that can be squished instantly? I do not hold a grudge against them. Them being permitted to continue living was solely based on the fact that the 1 minute it would take me to find and kill them is worth more than their lives in my eyes. Tsunade pondered Yuna's domineering words before she nodded her head in understanding. Naturally, she wouldn't dismiss Yuna so easily. Okay, I believe that you weren't the one to help them escape, but there are still quite a few people in your circle left that I think could do so as well. What about them? Fine, let me put it like that. I guarantee you that the Uzumaki clan and those they have relations with were not involved in this incident and that they did not gain any benefits from it. A frown appeared on Tsunade's face when she heard Yuna's phrasing. Obviously, there were quite a few loopholes in how Yuna formulated her sentence. After all, she could have talked to someone who was not associated with the Uzumaki to do the job. However, while contemplating, Tsunade realized something much more significant. Why now? If Yuna wanted these two dead, she would have killed them years ago. If this had happened right after Danzo died, Yuna would have been the obvious culprit, but now, 3 years later, that chance is actually relatively small. You know what? FCK it. Your guarantee is good enough for me. You are dismissed. Yuna said her goodbyes before leaving the room, leaving Tsunade behind. Damn it, I forgot to ask her about the craftsman. Don't worry, I know who it is. Tsunade didn't even twitch when she heard another person suddenly speaking, and her gaze landed on an old man, lying on a couch, reading a book. All right, thanks, Sensei. Chapter 382, They are reliable while being unreliable. Inside a colossal cave, a monstrous statue with 9 eyes could be seen. Its arms were slightly lifted with its fingers pointing upwards, and 5 transparent figures were standing distributed on those fingers. These 5 were the 5 still living members of Akatsuki except for Kasame, Pain, Conan, Zetsu, Kakuzu, and Haiden. Frankly, Pain was somewhat surprised that no outsiders had appeared yet. After all, Naruto had already demonstrated that he was capable of doing so. However, even if someone appeared, it didn't matter since they weren't gathering to share information but to extract the Hachibai from its Jinchuriki, Killer Bee, who Kasame claimed to have caught. While they were waiting, Pain's gaze wandered over the other people waiting with him, which caused a frown to appear on his face. Frankly, things weren't looking that great for Akatsuki despite almost reaching their goal. The first problem was Kakuzu, who never showed much loyalty to Akatsuki from the start and was only here for the money and because he feared Pain's power. Recently, that fear started slowly shifting towards another person, and it was only a matter of time before he left Akatsuki. Pain had considered killing him preemptively, but Kakuzu was not someone easy to deal with, and Akatsuki currently didn't have the resources to spare to plot his death. The next problem was Madara, Obito Tobi. Anyway, by now, Pain didn't even know what he called himself, and it didn't matter. At first, Pain cooperated with him not because he claimed to be Madara, but because of the future he wanted to create. This, and the power he displayed, was enough to sway Pain's opinion towards helping him, but by now, that image had somewhat crumbled. The confident Madara Uchiha he met years ago, proudly standing in front of the Rinnegan and claiming that he would bring peace to the world, was no more and was instead replaced with a twitchy mess who saw ambushes and pranks around every corner. Then there was Haiden. Where is that damn Kasame bastard? If he makes me wait any longer, I'm gonna sacrifice him to Jashin-sama. Anyway, Zetsu didn't appear to be looking so well either. Just like Obeda, he grew significantly twitchier, and Pain could easily tell that he was ready to flee at any moment. Considering his hiding ability, even Pain wasn't confident in capturing him if he tried. Last but not least, Conan. Well, nothing much changed about her, but Pain could easily see that she was getting more and more worried about the success of their plan, and even more so, about his survival. A few minutes later, a tall man with blue skin and shark-like facial features entered the cave while carrying a dark-skinned man with well-defined muscles and white hair over his shoulder. Yo, sorry for the wait. Let's get the extraction started already. Fighting this guy was no joke, and I'm tired as hell. Honestly, Pain had reached a point where he half expected the unconscious body Kasame was carrying to burst into a cloud of smoke, transform into Yuna and stab Kasame in the head, but for now, nothing of that sort had happened, and Kasame laid B's body on the Gedomaza's hands without any issue. Moments later, the extraction ritual started, causing Pain to nod in approval. Since the ritual started properly and the Hachibi's chakra was getting extracted, Pain concluded that there would be no issues this time. He couldn't help but sigh in relief that at least one of his subordinates was still capable of performing their tasks correctly. Unfortunately, that notion changed a little about 3 hours later, when B's body burst into a smoke cloud and revealed a single octopus tentacle, causing Pain's eyebrow to twitch in irritation. It seems like you were tricked, Kasame. Damn it, that shitty octopus bastard managed to get away from me. Kasame, you bastard. You made me wait for nothing. The next time I see you, I will sacrifice you to Jashin-sama. Toady is a good boy. Ha ha ha, this is so hilarious, you know. While Pain was sinking into the depth of despair due to his organization getting constantly tricked by the still-living Jinchurikis and the other Akatsuki members causing an uproar, a foreign voice with a somewhat familiar verbal tick echoed through the room, instantly silencing everyone else. Everyone's eyes concentrated on the newly arrived transparent form, causing it to scratch its head awkwardly. Oops. I was supposed to stay hidden, but this whole mess was so funny that I accidentally started laughing, you know. Sorry about that. Pain almost started coughing out blood when he saw the crimson-red hair, the trademark of the Uzumaki clan. However, except for the hair color, Pain did not recognize the new arrival. Who are you? Pain tried to sound regal, projecting the image of a god he believed himself to be, but the Uzumaki clan member only looked at him weirdly when he did so. I didn't expect there to be another person like Yunasama who enjoys acting almighty and aloof on occasion, but I guess everyone has their own weird hobbies. A few of Pain's blood vessels almost burst in anger when the way he spoke was interpreted as a weird hobby, but before he could say anything, the man who appeared to be in his early 20s resumed speaking. Anyway, my name is Oryo Uzumaki, and Yunasama ordered me to spy on all of the Akatsuki meetings being held. Oryo stopped speaking for a moment and lowered his head in shame. Which I obviously messed up. He squatted down as a dark aura covered his whole body. Yunasama will definitely scold me. The aura grew even darker as despair started oozing out of Orio's body. Damn it, I will definitely not be allowed to eat ramen for a while, you know. However, just as quickly as he grew depressed, he recovered and stood back up and looked at Pain with an eager expression. You won't tell anybody, right? Please don't tell anybody. Tomorrow there will be this special deal at Ramen Ichiraku where you can. Dismissed. Before Oreo could tell Pain about the special offer at Ramen Ichiraku, Pain dismissed all the Akatsuki members, resulting in all of them leaving instantly, causing Oreo to scream in despair. No, my special offer. I was looking forward to it 4 days, you know. Meanwhile, the jonin that Tsunade dispatched to do the same job as Oreo could only look at him in a weird mixture of awe and annoyance. Or, because Oreo could act so casually in front of a group of monsters that made the jonin tremble in fear every time he so much as thought about the possibility of getting discovered. In fact, when Pain asked Oreo who he was, the jonin could almost feel his soul leave his body from the pressure alone. an annoyance because he completely messed up their mission. He didn't really understand the process, but Yuna apparently made it possible to spy on the Akatsuki meetings without being discovered. That hidden feature was now no longer hidden. Sai as expected of the Uzumaki clan. They are extremely reliable and, at the same time, extremely unreliable. Chapter 383, The Fight for Kubikaribacha. I, Suigetsu Hazuki, challenge you, Zabuza Momocha, to a fight, and if I win, the Kubikaribacha will be mine. Zabuza looked at the young man pointing a sword at him with some amusement before shrugging his shoulders. Sure, let's do it. Yuna had already told him that Suigetsu would soon challenge him for the Kubikaribacha, so he wasn't the least surprised by his challenge. Besides that, this was actually how the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist worked. If you wanted to become one of them, you had to challenge them to a one-on-one battle and defeat them. Suigetsu was far from the first person to issue such a challenge to him. Frankly, Suigetsu could be considered Zabuza's worst matchup since his ability to turn into water would render most of Zabuza's skills useless. Despite that, Zabuza wasn't the least bit worried about winning this fight. Suigetsu became excited at the mere thought of possessing Kubikaribacha soon and immediately attacked Zabuza, causing him to shake his head in incredulity. Clang. 2 swords clashed, coming to a standstill, but unlike Suigetsu, who was holding his sword with both hands, Zabuza was only using one. You want to wield Kubikaribacha with that kind of weak body? Please tell me you are joking. As soon as Zabuza stopped speaking, he started using more of his strength, resulting in Suigetsu getting pushed back. Suigetsu gritted his teeth while trying to push back against Zabuza's strength, but no matter how much he exerted himself, he couldn't contend against Zabuza. However, a smirk appeared on Suigetsu's face as he let go of his sword while rushing towards Zabuza, resulting in Zabuza cutting straight through him. That would be a fatal wound for most people, but Suigetsu's body could turn into water, so Zabuza's attack harmlessly passed through him. Hee, so what if you have more physical strength than me? That won't help you if you can't hit me. A kunai appeared in Suigetsu's hand, which he swiftly stabbed into Zabuza's neck, causing him to grin. Ha ha ha, I finally got my hands on the first of the 7 suo. Splatter. A second Zabuza had appeared behind Suigetsu and slapped the flat side of his blade against Suigetsu's head, making it pop like a water balloon. However, instead of blood, water splashed everywhere, and only a few seconds later, Suigetsu's head reappeared. Suigetsu glanced at the Zabuza he had just attacked and clicked his tongue in annoyance when he saw how he turned into water. So you managed to substitute yourself before my attack hit you, huh? How unlucky. Unlucky? Don't kid yourself by telling yourself that that was a close call for me, brat. While you were still shitting your diapers, I was already out there fighting in a war. There is no way such a little trick could catch me off guard. Suigetsu frowned when he heard Zabuza's words but didn't refute them. Experience-wise, he was indeed at a disadvantage. Additionally, he had to drop his sword during the surprise attack, so it was now uselessly lying on the ground, out of Suigetsu's reach. Zabuza saw Suigetsu's dilemma and shook his head. He casually moved his foot and kicked Suigetsu's sword back to him, who caught it with a surprised expression on his face. Someone who would let go of his sword wants to wield Kubikaribacha, huh? Go home, kid. This fight is over. Zabuza turned around and walked away without saying anything else, making Suigetsu's face flush in anger. What do you mean by over? I'm still standing. This fight is far from over. Zabuza didn't stop walking and only casually waved Suigetsu's words away with his hand. Meh, Yuna will scold me if I splatter your blood all over the arena, so get lost. My blood. Bullshit. I cannot bleed. You are just running away because you have no way to defeat me. Suigetsu ran after Zabuza, causing him to shake his head. Sigh, when I heard that someone would challenge me for my sword, I started looking forward to a good sword fight, but instead, I get a little kid that only relies on his innate ability to turn into water. Suigetsu swung his sword at Zabuza, forcing another disappointed sigh out of him. Zabuza's hand blurred, and before Suigetsu could understand the situation, his sword was sent spinning into the air by Zabuza's. You are just blindly swinging your sword around while relying on your ability to turn into water for defense. Do not re-challenge me before you learn how to wield your weapon correctly. Additionally, Zabuza's hand blurred again, resulting in a small red line appearing on Suigetsu's right cheek. It is not impossible to cut you. Suigetsu was confused about what Zabuza had just done, but he quickly realized that something wet was flowing down his cheek, and as soon as he checked what it was, his eyes widened in surprise. Be blood. I'm actually bleeding. What does she always claim? There is nothing that I cannot cut or something like that. Well, I'm far from claiming something so ridiculous, but I'm still thankful that Yuna helped me improve my swordsmanship. Otherwise, I might have actually lost against a brat like this. Although he was insulted again, Suigetsu couldn't hear Zabuza's words at all. He was still looking at the blood on his fingers in disbelief while muttering to himself. He can cut me. How is that possible? Why can a sword that isn't coated in lightning chakra hurt me? That's impossible. Meanwhile, Juga, who spectated the fight, could only shake his head at Suigetsu's current situation. Although the two weren't exactly friends, Juga still felt a little pity for Suigetsu but didn't know how to cheer him up. He lost in a fair fight, and despite Suigetsu treating it as a fight to the death, he was only scolded after his defeat. It was rather pitiful that he was treated like a child, but Juga thought that that was still preferable to dying. After all, as long as he is alive, he can try again. Well, considering Suigetsu's current mental condition, that might be rather unrealistic, but who knows what conclusion Suigetsu will reach. As for Juga himself, he was pretty much living how he always wanted to. Since Yuna put that seal on him, he didn't go berserk even once, and he was even hired by the Uzumaki clan. Not as a mercenary or anything like that, but as a gardener. Juga hated fighting and hurting other people, so a job like that was exactly to his taste. Well, he would have preferred a position involving more animals, but beggars can't be choosers. He might decide to ask the Inuzuka clan for a job at some point, but for now, he would stay with the Uzumaki clan. Their friendly and outgoing behavior was healing his soul, which had grown weary from all the unintentional killing he was forced to go through. Chapter 384, Official Duties. Inside a vast hall that was lavishly decorated with ornate Uzumaki clan symbols, Yuna, with a regal expression, sat on a slightly elevated seat that overlooked the whole room. This was the room where she went to performing her duties as the Uzumaki clan matriarch, so, naturally, it was barely used. Behind her stood two maids, Karen and Taiya, both wearing similar-looking French-made dresses. Previously, Karen had always been wearing a skimpier version, but after she managed to seduce Yuna, she switched back to the original version. However, as soon as Taiya started working as a maid as well, Karen immediately switched back to the skimpier one to win the contest of who was the more perverted maid. Only now, after months of persuasion from Taiya, did Karen accept that Taiya had absolutely no interest in participating in such a contest, resulting in Karen switching back to a regular outfit. By now, she occasionally even wore underwear when she had official duties to fulfill. In addition to these three people, there was another person present. In the middle of the room stood Oryo Uzumaki, who had just finished the report about his failed mission and was currently lowering his head like a child that was about to be scolded for doing something wrong. Yuna mentally went over the report she just heard again and couldn't help but chuckle in amusement. Hee, those Akatsuki people sure a merry bunch, huh? Oryo lifted his head, hoping that there would be no punishment due to Yuna finding the situation amusing as well. Yuna's following words immediately increased that hope before it got crushed mercilessly. Well, I will be lenient since this got a chuckle out of me as well. 2 weeks of no ramen. You are dismissed. Ga. Why yes, why Yuna-sama? Oreo moved like someone had just punched him in the stomach as soon as he heard Yuna's judgment, and despair started covering his face. Nonetheless, he managed to stutter out an answer and left the room. Karen couldn't help but roll her eyes at his behavior. Isn't he exaggerating? He basically messed up our spy operation on Akatsuki, and all he has to do as punishment is to abstain from eating ramen for 2 weeks. Tayuya scoffed when she heard Karen's words and started speaking as well. Oh? So 2 weeks of abstaining from something is no big deal. How about you abstain from acting like a pervert in front of Yuna-sama for 2 weeks to show everyone how easy it is? Karen's face instantly paled when she heard Tayuya's words, causing Yuna to chuckle in amusement. Well, we Uzumaki tend to have one desire that we are primarily focused on, so depriving us of that is actually quite the heavy hit for most of us. Tayuya's eyes shone with interest when she heard Yuna's words. Then what is Yuna-sama's primary desire? Yuna raised her eyebrow at Tayuya's rather bold question. When she started working here, she would have never dared to ask Yuna a question like this. By now, Tayuya had pretty much figured out that Yuna was a rather lax person when it came to decorum, and that she could get away with quite a few things the maid of an ordinary person wouldn't. It's spanking my maids. A shudder went through Tayuya's spine as she straightened her back and instinctively covered her butt with her hands. Naturally, even if Tayuya could get away with asking bold questions, Yuna would take every opportunity she could get to tease her. I volunteer. Yuna and Tayuya's eyes landed on the eager-looking Karen, causing them to roll their eyes. We can talk about that later, Karen. Are we done with my official duties? I'm getting tired. Tayuya's face deadpanned when she heard Yuna's question. Yuna-sama, Oreo was literally the first person you had to deal with today. Now that I think about it, it has been a while since Anko and I had our last double span. I apologize for my cheeky behavior, Yuna-sama. Yuna couldn't help but laugh a little when she heard Tayuya's instant switch in behavior and casually waved her apology away. Well, jokes aside, is there anybody else who wanted to meet me in an official setting? This time it was Karen's turn to start speaking. Yes, Yuna-sama. Neja Hyuga-sama would like to officially greet you as the new head of the Hyuga clan. Oh? So he already succeeded the position from Hayasha, huh? Very well, call him in. Yes. Karen's index finger started glowing blue, and after drawing a few simple seals into the air, the glow vanished again. Sending messages to other people within the Uzumaki compound was incredibly simple. By now, it was so simplified that even people who knew very little about seals could use the system to some degree. Meanwhile, Neja sat inside a guest room, sipping some tea while waiting to be called into the audience chamber. The last few months have been rather hectic for the Hyuga clan. First, the elders involved in the coup were publicly executed, while a mission was commissioned to the Uzumaki clan that involved modifying all the Hyuga clan branch members' curse seals. Obviously, that caused quite the uproar within the Hyuga clan, and not even a week after the seals were changed, it came to light just how badly some of the main family members were treating the branch family, resulting in the execution of 2 more people. Around a month later, most branch members internalized that the main family could no longer control them, which almost caused a revolution. The main family might have had access to more advanced techniques of the gentle fist, but the difference in numbers would be too overwhelming for the main family to do anything. Lucky, Hayasha managed to find his way out of this dilemma by making Neja, who never treated the branch family too badly, especially after Hinata beat him down, the next clan head. Although that move pacified the branch family quite a bit, quite a few individuals were unsatisfied with how easily the main family got away with what they did and wanted to remove them altogether. All of that finally ended when Hisoka Hyuga, the strongest person in the branch family and the current Hyuga clan's greatest genius, placed her foot down and put her support behind Neja. And now that Neja finally finished defeating stack after stack of paperwork to get the mess that was the current Hyuga clan under control, he decided to pay a visit to Konoha's most prominent clients, starting with the most powerful one, the Uzumaki clan. While Neji was contemplating what had happened over the course of the last few months, someone knocked on the door, and after Neji gave his approval, a young woman with long red hair entered the room. "Neja Hyuga-sama, Yuna-sama is ready to meet you now." Neja took a deep breath to calm his turbulent nerves before nodding his head in acknowledgement. "Lead the way." Chapter 385, The Hyuga Clan's New Path. Neji was currently being led through the corridors of the Uzumaki clan to the audience chamber. Yuna was waiting in with a complicated expression on his face. Frankly, he had no clue how he was supposed to treat Yuna. At first glance, Yuna and Neji appeared to have an equal position. Both of them were similar in age and were the heads of prominent clans, however, that couldn't be further from the truth. While Neji became the clan head simply due to the merit of not having treated the branch family members too badly, Yuna carved out that position with her own two hands. She not only re-established the Uzumaki clan but led it to prosperity while defeating and repelling multiple S-rank threats throughout her reign. While Neji considered himself as something like a puppet at worst and a figurehead at best, he thought of Yuna as someone skilled, powerful, and with enough merit to claim such a position. Although Neji wasn't exactly off in his assumption about Yuna, he vastly overestimated her involvement in the Uzumaki clan. If there was one thing Yuna learned about managing a big organization in her past life, it was how to delegate jobs to people who wanted to do them. Just take Akane Uzumaki as an example. She was currently the oldest living Uzumaki and one of the first people to return to Konoha. When she first arrived, Yuna decided to let her deal with the Uzumaki clan's finances and had never regretted it since then. In fact, this was also one of the reasons why Yuna still had no clue how money worked in this world. If she wanted to buy something, she would just grab it and tell whoever was responsible to send the bill to the Uzumaki clan. Would people try to cheat the Uzumaki clan due to Yuna's actions? If they are willing to take the risk of making the elemental nation's strongest clan their enemy, then yes. The war continued as Neji's mind breached another topic, Yuna's outrageous and chaotic behavior. At first, Neji was somewhat worried that Yuna would do something ridiculous during his visit, but he calmed down relatively quickly after thinking about it some more. By now, Yuna's preferences were known to some degree after all. Those who got it the worst were always her enemies, and Neji was pretty sure that Yuna did not consider him to be an enemy. Yuna's second favorite targets were people of authority who paid a lot of attention to decorum and stuff like that, so Neji decided to approach her casually instead of the stiff way the Hyuga usually acted. Her third favorite target were actually people she was close to, which Neji didn't believe to be either. In conclusion, Neji had at least some degree of confidence that Yuna wouldn't mess with him too much. Anyway, a short while later, Neji was guided to the room Yuna was waiting in and entered it. He walked towards Yuna, but as soon as he met her eyes, he almost staggered due to the pressure they were radiating. As expected, when she acts seriously for once, her presence is no joke. Somehow, even that pervert Karen has a serious aura around her. There is no way I can approach her casually with this kind of atmosphere covering the room. So Neji straightened his back, walked forward with steady steps, and came to a halt a few meters away from Yuna despite the pressure he was feeling. "I am Neji Hyuga, and I came here to introduce myself as the next head of the Hyuga clan to the current head of the Uzumaki clan." As soon as Neji finished speaking, the pressure vanished, causing Neji to falter a little while making Yuna chuckle. "Hee, what are you so stiff for, Neji? Aren't we almost the same age? There is no need to talk formally to me." Neji couldn't help but glare at Yuna when she finished speaking. After all, the only reason he talked like that was because Yuna appeared to be serious for once, but it seems like that was just another one of her pranks. "Sigh, yeah, I got it. We already know each other, but I might as well reintroduce myself. Neji Hyuga, head of the Hyuga clan." Let's get along. Ha ha ha, much better. Yuna Uzumaki, head of the Uzumaki clan. Likewise. Would it be possible to ask some advice in regards to the future of the Hyuga clan? Naturally, Ninja didn't want to simply introduce himself, but wanted to ask for advice as well. The Hyuga clan as a whole was clearly stagnant. Or rather than just stagnant, they were slowly regressing. Others might find it weird that Ninja would ask someone as young as Yuna for advice, but Ninja didn't feel like anything was strange about it. Hayashi had already told him about Yuna's words when he visited Yuna to talk about Hisoka using something that wasn't the gentle fist. From Yuna's mocking words, it was rather apparent that she had a very clear picture of everything that was wrong with the Hyuga clan. The issue with enslaving over 90% of the clan was already solved, so he hoped that Yuna could give him some advice regarding the other points she mentioned, the self-isolation of their clan and their stagnant fighting style. Yuna motioned for Ninja to continue, and after hearing what he wanted advice about, Yuna simply shrugged her shoulders like it wasn't a big deal. That is easy to solve. The Hyuga clan needs a change of image. There is nothing that can be done about your stiff faces for now, but there is actually a profession that suits your clan extremely well, benefits from the person always having a calm expression, and, considering Konoha's current Hokage, is prone to blossom. At first, Ninja had a blank expression on his face, but as he kept pondering Yuna's words, his confusion cleared up rather quickly. A medical nin. Correct. The most important aspect of becoming a medical nin is precise chakra control, which all Hyuga have inherently. Additionally, your expressionless faces will prevent people from seeing you panicking in chaotic situations, and let's not even talk about the ridiculous advantages the Byakugan gives a medical nin. Considering Tsunade has been pushing for the one medical nin per squad idea for years, this is the perfect chance to seize the momentum. No one dislikes medics. This will automatically stop your clan from isolating itself, and I'm confident that incorporating an entirely new discipline in your skill set will inevitably lead to new techniques. Neji thought about Yuna's words for quite a while, and he was just about to answer her when the door was kicked open with a loud boom, and a young woman with brown skin, mint-green hair, and orange eyes walked into the room, closely followed by a weird-looking turtle with a long tail. Additionally, a giant fox could be seen sprinting towards the duo in a hurry. Yuna, what's a legal loli? Unfortunately, the fox was too late, and the young woman, Fu, had already managed to ask her question. Yuna's eyebrow rose as she looked at Fu with curiosity, wondering where she would hear a term like that. She glanced at Tayuya and noticed that she had no idea what Fu was talking about, and then glanced at Karen to confirm that she had question marks hanging above her head as well. Considering not even Karen knows about that term, Yuna was now sure that the term loli or lolican did not exist in this world. A kind smile that sent shivers through the spines of everyone in the room appeared on Yuna's face. Fu, I wonder where you heard that term. Although Fu was slightly intimidated by Yuna's smile at first, she quickly noticed that she wasn't the one in trouble, so she happily answered Yuna's question. I was reading about some cool insects in the library when this girl that had eyes similar to Hinata suddenly stood up and yelled, "Oh! There's the legal loli." Yuna nodded her head at Fu's explanation and looked at Tayuya. Please go to the library and beat Hisoka up for corrupting Fu's mind with dirty words. Hypocrite tilde. Yuna felt like someone was whispering something in her ear but decided to ignore it. Meanwhile, Tayuya wasn't sure what was going on, but she nonetheless did as Yuna ordered and left the room. Anyway, let's leave it at that. You two should leave. Hypocrite tilde. Although Fu was slightly dissatisfied that her question wasn't answered, she nodded her head and left the room. Meanwhile, Neja had absolutely no clue what was happening but decided to do the same. Sigh poor Fu. Every day her innocence gets further corrupted. Damn, there is this word that fits the situation really well, but I just can't remember it. I swear it's on the tip of my tongue. Yuna rolled her eyes at Kurama and lazily stretched her back. Anyway, now that my duties are finally over, it's time to relax. Karen, get naked and lay over my knee. Yes, Yuna-sama. Ah. I just remembered it. It's hypocrite. Chapter 386, It's Contagious. Deep inside the Uzumaki compound in one of the many training grounds stood two women opposite each other. One of them had spiky violet hair with a red tint and brown eyes, while the other had brown eyes and black hair with a single white strand. Pin-drop silence reigned the whole, but suddenly, both of their images blurred, and moments later, the sound of dozens of clashes echoed through the training ground as the duo started a high-speed close combat battle that easily reached the level of two elite jonin fighting each other. After around a minute of fighting, the duo separated, and while there was a neutral expression on the face of the woman with black hair, the other one was pouting. That's some pretty damn good taijutsu for someone who, and I quote, is not very good at taijutsu, Haku. Well, Yuna has always been emphasizing how important taijutsu is to create a stable foundation, so I have been focusing on it recently. Anko pondered on Haku's words for a moment before nodding in understanding. I see, so in other words, you trained your body so Naruto won't completely overwhelm you and Ino too quickly, huh? Haku's face turned red in shame as she glared at the other woman. Anko, don't talk nonsense. Anko's smirk vanished and was replaced with an innocent expression within an instant. What are you getting angry about, Haku? Naruto is clearly very skilled in taijutsu, so there is no shame in getting bested by him in that regard. Haku's face became even redder when she realized that Anko's vague words tricked her into thinking about something perverted, while Anko pretended to have pure thoughts. Meanwhile, inside one of the spectator rooms. Whoa there, calm down, father-in-law. Naruto just caught the blade of cubic curvature that was about to split him in half vertically with the palm of his hands. Damn it, who are you calling father-in-law, brat? Haku is my weapon, nothing more. Then why the hell are you currently trying to split me into two halves? Because I feel like it. Naruto sent a pleading glance at Yuna, but she only gave him a small praying gesture before completely ignoring him and focusing her attention back on the fight. Back to the fight between Anko and Haku, hundreds of small ice needles started forming in midair around Haku and launched themselves at Anko at high speed. Anko was unimpressed as she took a deep breath, gathered chakra in her lungs, and exhaled, resulting in a tsunami of fire being launched towards Haku that instantly melted all of her ice needles. Just when Anko's attack was about to reach Haku, an ice mirror rose in front of her, and despite it slowly melting, Haku was confident that it would last until Anko's attack was over. She was just about to prepare her next move when her instincts flared, causing her to freeze the ground around her within a meter radius immediately. Haku glanced at her left foot and noticed that a small snake was just about to bite into her ankle and was now turned into an ice statue. Although she didn't know much about snakes, she did not doubt that whatever poison the snake Anko attacked her with it would have been a bad outcome for her. A pity, I was hoping I could win before we even started properly. I'm not like Yuna, who has to squeeze every little bit of power out of her opponent before she is satisfied, after all. Haku scoffed at Anko's words as the skin around her eyes turned pure white and the temperature started decreasing rapidly. Sorry, but I won't make it that easy for you. A grin appeared on Anko's face as the skin around her eyes turned crimson, while the temperature around her started increasing. Despite what I just said, I probably would have been rather disappointed if you did. Haku lowered her stance and started gathering massive amounts of chakra and spread it throughout her surroundings, resulting in an enormous dome of ice mirrors raising around Anko. Ice-style, massive crystal ice mirror dome. Anko's grin widened when she saw Haku's signature jutsu surround her. Sorry, but that won't work against me. Arcane, let's party. Anko started gathering chakra as well while a 1-meter-long crimson snake slithered out of her sleeve, doing the same. Man-Beast Flame Cultivation Arts, Heavenly Twin Fire Beam Massacre. Anko and Akane both shot a highly concentrated beam of white burning flames out of their mouths that melted through Haku's mirrors like they were made out of cotton candy, and not even 5 seconds later, all the mirrors were destroyed. Anko gave Haku a smug look due to destroying her signature jutsu so quickly, but contrary to her expectations, Haku was currently looking at her with a combination of disbelief and pity. Huh? What's wrong, Haku? Did something happen? Sorry if me destroying your mirrors so easily shocked you too much. I guess I should have held back a little. Haku's facial expression stayed like it previously was for a while longer before she sighed deeply. Do you seriously not realize what just happened, Anko? Anko grew even more bewildered when the pity in Haku's facial expression increased. What are you talking about? Say your technique name. My technique name? What was wrong with my technique name? What the hell? The more Anko spoke, the more she realized what Haku was talking about. At first, her face grew paler and paler, and as soon as she fully understood what had just happened, it turned crimson in shame while forcing her to exclaim in bewilderment. Dan. I used Yuna's naming sense and didn't even notice it. When did this happen? How did this happen? Is it contagious? While Anko was writhing in shame, she realized something else as her head snapped towards the spectator room, from where Yuna was undoubtedly watching her. Anko could practically taste Yuna's smugness radiating out of the room. No. She will be insufferable for weeks. Chapter 387, Hinata vs. Ino. After Anko's defeat, it was time for another match, Hinata vs. Ino. While Ino looked pretty much like her canon counterpart, except that her eyes were much clearer and gave off a very mature impression, Hinata's previously purple hair turned bluer and bluer over the last few years and by now almost gave the impression of flowing water. They both got into a combat stance, but unlike almost every other time she fought someone, Hinata didn't activate her Byakugan. It turns out that Ino not only inherited her clan's affinity for mind-related skills but had an excellent affinity for everything concerning the soul, so meeting Ino's eyes during combat was not a great idea. Any form of eye contact would allow Ino to launch an attack on the mind or even on the soul. This was also how she so easily dispatched Jugo when they met a few months ago. The fight started, and Hinata immediately felt a familiar pressure descending onto her. The more developed soul, Ino's, exerted pressure onto the less developed one, Hinata's. Naturally, Hinata wasn't too bothered by that. She was already familiar with the feeling and knew that there was nothing she could do about it. Unlike Ino, Hinata spent significantly more time developing her water affinity and general skills in combat than her soul. Despite feeling some pressure from Ino, she was still confident that she could best her due to her superior combat skills. Small water droplets started forming around Hinata and, seemingly without any input from her, started shooting at Ino at high speed. Ino frowned when she saw Hinata's ridiculous control over water and swiftly pulled out 2 kunai to deflect the bullets she wouldn't be able to dodge and dove into the bullet storm. She expertly weaved through the storm, and moments later, she arrived in front of Hinata, slashing a kunai at her, slicing a large wound across her body. As soon as Ino's kunai made contact with Hinata's body, a deep frown appeared on her face as she basically felt no resistance. Instead of blood, water flowed out of the wound Ino just made, and moments later, Hinata's water clone exploded, resulting in water needles flying everywhere. Ino already predicted that would happen, so she was already jumping backward before the clone exploded, and as soon as she landed on the ground, she set chakra into the ground, resulting in a wall of earth raising in front of her, blocking the water needles. Like everyone else, Yuna forced Ino to learn at least a basic earth wall jutsu for defensive purposes. However, what Ino was worried about weren't the water needles but the fact that she lost sight of Hinata. That was never a good thing, so Ino heightened her perception as a profound light started radiating out of her eyes. Frankly, Hinata's stealth had reached a ridiculous degree, but out of everyone in the group, Ino had the best close-range perception, so only a few seconds later, her eyes snapped in a particular direction as her hands moved while still holding the two kunai. Clang. The sound of metal clashing echoed through the room as Ino barely managed to deflect Hinata's blade before it could reach her, causing Hinata to smile. "Oh? I honestly wasn't expecting you to find me. Even Yuna claims that she has no easy time finding me if I try hiding." Ino snorted as she took some distance from Hinata. "Well, since you specialize in stealth and I in perception, wouldn't it be pretty bad if I couldn't find you?" Hinata chuckled in amusement before shaking her head in denial. "Sorry to disappoint you, but I don't specialize in stealth." The skin around Hinata's eyes turned blue as massive amounts of water started forming in midair, causing a solemn expression to appear on Ino's face. "I specialize in water." A storm of water-based projectiles shot at Ino, causing her eyes to glow even brighter, increasing her perception to the max, while the pressure Hinata felt from her increased even further. Another earth wall rose in front of Ino, but this time it was quickly bisected by a jet of water which forced Ino to dodge underneath it. Ino left the no longer existing defense of her earth wall as she approached Hinata in a circular manner while constantly dodging the projectiles shot at her. This kept going for a few more minutes until Ino reached a range where she was confident that her next jutsu would hit. So, Ino's hand moved and formed the usual hand sign that was used when the Yamanaka clan used their mind jutsu. Cloned mind transfer jutsu. Unlike the original skill that would cause Ino to lose consciousness, she developed a new version recently. Instead of having her real consciousness invading someone else's body, she would create a clone of it and send it towards her opponent. Moments later, Hinata's eyes became dazed as the onslaught of water projectiles stopped, causing a happy smile to appear on Ino's face. Although Ino had the advantage that Hinata couldn't use her Byakugan against her, that disadvantage was easily balanced by Hinata's ridiculous proficiency in large-scale multiple projectile attacks. Unfortunately, Ino's good mood didn't last for long, as she could suddenly feel a blade press against her neck as the Hinata she just tried to mind control turned into a puddle of water. "In no way, a water clone." "Hee, sorry about that, Ino, but it's not that easy, you know." Ino's face deadpanned when she heard Hinata's words as she looked at her with dead eyes. "Please tell me you did that verbal tick as a joke." At first, Hinata had no idea what Ino was talking about, but after pondering the situation for a moment, her face flushed crimson. Ha ha ha, oh of course, I did. I was just trying to copy it because I thought it might be funny, hee hee. Naturally, Ino didn't believe a single word Hinata said, but after remembering Anko's condition after the last fight, she decided to play dumb and not expose Hinata's lie. "I see, guess that joke fell flat, huh?" Hinata eagerly started nodding her head when she realized that Ino believed her lie. Yes, totally messed up that jerk. Such a pity, ha ha ha. Chapter 388, a new title. Meanwhile, an oppressive aura covered the spectator rooms as Inoicha, Ino's father, glared at Naruto so hard that it was only a question of time before he caught fire and turned into ashes. Luckily, he wasn't here during Enko's fight against Haku, so he didn't hear Enko's comment about Haku training her body, which would undoubtedly result in a battle to the death. It was almost like Naruto predicted that Enko would try to mess with him, so he accidentally gave Inoicha the wrong starting time. Truly a fascinating coincidence. Although Inoicha was currently glaring daggers at Naruto, his true thoughts about Naruto dating his daughter had actually mellowed down quite a bit, not that he would ever admit that though. Somehow, his cute little daughter, whose only goal in life was attracting Sasuke's attention without sparing a single thought about actually becoming a shinobi, became someone who was not only stronger than himself but could even fight and defeat an elite jonin. Currently, Ino could be considered one of Konoha's strongest shinobi. Inoicha did not doubt that Yuna and Naruto had something to do with that, so could he really stay angry at Naruto for dating his daughter? Damn straight he could. It was the privilege of the father-in-law to be unreasonably protective of his daughter, and Inoichi planned to abuse that privilege for as long as he possibly could. Naruto could only smile wryly when he saw the constantly changing facial expression of Inoichi. That, combined with the rapidly changing emotions he felt oozing out of Inoichi, really left Naruto speechless. What the hell? How in the world is he switching so quickly from hostility to acceptance and back to hostility? Did Mei-san do something? Well, hasn't he always been pretty crazy? Pretty sure that you sleeping with his daughter was the final straw that broke his mind. Tsukuya blamed it on his wife, who hit his head with a frying pan one too many times. True, that is a possibility as well. Cough, is there a problem, father-in-law? You appear to be slightly agitated. Are you dissatisfied with something? Inoichi was still pondering how he was supposed to act in front of Naruto when he heard Naruto calling him father-in-law, almost causing one of his blood vessels to burst in anger. His eyes were turning redder and redder, and he was just about to go into a rage-induced rant about all kinds of things that he was dissatisfied about when the door opened and Hinata and Ino entered the room. As soon as Ino saw her father's current condition, she squinted her eyes and started glaring at him. Dad, are you about to arrest Naruto again? Haven't we talked about this? Inoichi straightened his back when he heard the slightly angry undertone in his daughter's voice and immediately put a friendly expression on his face. Ha, what are you saying, Ino? Naruto and I are getting along perfectly well, isn't that right, Naruto? Inoichi happily hugged Naruto's shoulder with a facial expression that was only one step away from crying tears of blood while clenching his teeth so hard that Naruto did not doubt that even people in the next room could hear them grinding together. His first instinct was to throw Inoichi under the bus, but he somehow felt that Inoichi would go for the double suicide if he did so. Ha, of course, father-in-law. Don't worry, Ino, father-in-law and I are getting along great. Although Ino very much doubted that, she simply shrugged her shoulders and approached Naruto, kissing him, resulting in a loud crack echoing through the room. Inoichi had just clenched his jaw so hard that, at the very least, one of his teeth cracked, causing Naruto to chuckle nervously. He really wanted to tell Ino not to overdo it with affectionate displays in front of her father, but in the end, he just shrugged it off. If he dies, he dies. That's quite ruthless. I approve. Anyway, Naruto decided to change the topic to prevent Inoichi's untimely death despite his inner thoughts. Well, that aside, it was awe-inspiring how he managed to weave through Hinata's attacks, Ino. So awesome. Unfortunately, Naruto's plan immediately backfired as a happy smile appeared on Ino's face while she hugged Naruto's arm, pressing it between her breasts, causing Inoichi to cough up some blood. Cough, why yeah, Ino, that was really impressive. Inoichi frantically tried to get Ino away from Naruto, but unfortunately, Ino casually dismissed his praise. Geez, it was no big deal, Dad. After training as hard as I did, it is only natural that I could do something like that. He really wanted to cry at how differently he was treated compared to Naruto, but he simply doted on Ino too much to issue any complaints. Unfortunately for Naruto, Ino, and Inoichi, they forgot one simple fact. Yuna was in the room as well. Hee, it seems like you are rather happy about the performance of your two girlfriends, Naruto. How about pampering them lots tonight to show them how much you appreciate them? I'm sure the additional effort they put into strengthening their body will be put to good use, Tilda. It was like lightning struck multiple people in the room simultaneously. While Ino and Haku blushed crimson, Naruto's face paled while looking at Yuna like she had just stabbed a dagger into his heart. Inoichi fell to his knees while coughing out some more blood. It also looked like his eyes were slowly turning crimson red while the form of his pupils appeared to be changing. Additionally, killing intent started flooding out of Zabuza as mist slowly started filling the room, gradually hiding his form. Eerie silence covered the room, while the only thing that could be heard were Yuna and Enko's mad giggles as they observed the scene of carnage in front of them. Moments later, battle intent flooded the room as Zabuza and Inoichi started attacking Naruto. Die. Without a second of hesitation, Naruto dodged an attack from Anoicha, who was trying to hold him down with a mind control jutsu, so Zabuza could cut him and left the room at lightning speed, closely followed by Zabuza and Anoicha. I will definitely pay you back for this, Nii-san. My revenge will be horrible. Despite Naruto's threat, a happy smile appeared on Yuna's face as she started waving at Naruto. Okay tilde, have fun out there, Naruto tilde, oh, and good luck tilde. Ding. Due to taking certain actions, a new title has been unlocked. You have earned the title, Kin Killer. Naruto will be fine, probably. Chapter 389, a new genius appears. Yet again, Yuna found herself inside Tsunade's office, but this time, instead of glaring at Yuna, Tsunade massaged her head with a hand covered in grain healing chakra, making Yuna chuckle in amusement. Mido's soul went back to the Pio land like 2 days ago. Tsunade, why are you returning to your old habits already? Tsunade threw a death glare at Yuna before she continued massaging her head. And whose fault do you think that is? I hope you are not even trying to pretend that you have nothing to do with all those alcohol bottles you gave me, literally trying to tempt me to drink them. Yuna pondered on Tsunade's words before nodding in acknowledgement. Very well. I am willing to admit that I'm about 25% at fault. The rest is on you for actually getting tempted. Tsunade felt like she was just hit by lightning when Yuna actually admitted to being partially at fault. However, a short moment later, she realized that even if that were the case, there would be no consequences anyway, which was probably why she didn't mind admitting to it. No matter how Tsunade looked at it, she couldn't blame Yuna for her getting drunk at her own home. Tsunade shook her head to get rid of her idle thoughts and put a serious expression on her face. Anyway, let's get to the meat of the matter. Be honest with me, Yuna, did you? Before Tsunade finished speaking, the term "be honest with me," Yuna echoed through her head again and again, making her realize how absurd it was. She started massaging her temples again to counter her incoming headache as a tired sigh escaped her mouth. Sigh, let me rephrase that. Please answer me as reasonably as your twisted mind allows you to. Yuna couldn't help but laugh out loud when she heard Tsunade's phrasing before giving her a thumbs up. Well said. I approve of that phrasing. Ask away, and I will see what I can do. Tsunade's eyebrow twitched in irritation as Yuna interpreted yet another insult as a compliment. Still, after over 3 years of dealing with Yuna, that didn't faze her too much anymore, so she simply continued speaking. Anyway, as you might or might not know, a new batch of students is about to finish the Shinobi Academy, and one of them, a civilian born, suddenly started surpassing all of his peers throughout the last few months, despite being rather average for the whole time. Yuna patiently waited for Tsunade to finish, and as soon as she stopped speaking, Yuna looked at her weirdly. So, what am I supposed to do with that information? Do you want me to give him a stern talking to for the audacity of surpassing the children of prominent clients? In fact, I'm pretty sure that some Uzumakis are in that class as well. Or maybe you want to give me another Genentine. Tsunade shuddered at the mere thought of having even more people tainted by Yuna running through Konoha and quickly shook her head in denial to both of her guesses. I think you know full well that I don't care about the so-called prominent clients. Besides that, the only clans who still care about that are the Hyuga clan, which currently has different problems to solve than one of their younger generation not getting the top spot, and the Inuzuka clan, whose male children tend to compete for the position of class leader. Well, usually, their mental capacity needs some working on, making it rather unlikely for them to become the de facto class leader. Yuna thought about the attitude some Inuzuka clan members had and nodded her head in agreement. They certainly were good at trekking, but their one-track mind made them unfit to take on a leading position, which they usually only realize after they have grown up some more. Anyway, I obviously don't want to put another set of genin under you. I already have enough problems and would rather not increase them any further. No, what I originally wanted to ask is whether you hinged into that civilian to have some fun and crush the confidence of the clan children out of your own amusement. Pin-drop silence covered the room as Yuna gave Tsunade a weird outlook. Okay, I admit that would be pretty hilarious, but it seems you have overseen a rather daring issue in your theory. There is no way I'm willing to endure the boredom that is the Shinobi Academy again just to play a little prank on a bunch of random children I don't care about. Tsunade nodded in acknowledgement when she heard Yuna's words. Frankly, she already suspected that it wasn't Yuna, but whenever something weird happened in Konoha, Tsunade's mind immediately assumed that Yuna was involved in it somehow. Yeah, I expected that, but I would still like to know why he suddenly started becoming stronger at such a fast rate. Well, he either held back from the start, or he got himself a pocket grandpa. What in the world is a pocket grandpa? Forget about that one. On a side note, what's his name? Tsunade gave Yuna a confused look before rifling through a few documents to get the name and origins of the person they were talking about. Well, his name is Inari, and he is the grandson of a somewhat influential merchant called Tazuna from the Land of Waves. Somehow, that name sounded somewhat familiar to Yuna, so after contemplating about it for a short moment, the vague image of a young boy with an oversized stripe had appeared in her mind. So it was actually a pocket grandma, huh? Sorry, what was that? Tsunade heard Yuna murmuring about something but couldn't hear it clearly. Well, you don't have to worry about him, Tsunade. I can guarantee you that he was simply holding back the whole time. Oh, okay. And why would you think so? Well, because I met him almost 4 years ago and told him to do so. He wanted to get stronger, so I designed him a training plan, and since I didn't know when I could get rid of Danza, I told him not to reveal his strength too early. Naturally, Tsunade was dumbfounded by Yuna's words. Are you telling me that a random civilian was capable of surpassing the children from Konoha's prominent clans simply because you gave him a training plan? Well, obviously. Who do you think I am? A groan escaped Tsunade as the all-too-familiar Yuna headache made a return, causing Tsunade to massage her temples again. Could you for once do something that is not absurd? Only once. Sorry, no promises. On a side note, I improved the spying mechanism on the Akatsuki ring to make it possible to listen to them even when they aren't in a meeting. Are you interested? Groan. Chapter 390, Akatsuki Meeting. Inside a murky cave stood a figure with spiky orange hair, purple ripple pattern eyes, multiple black metal sticks piercing into his body, and an annoyed scowl on his face. This person was one of the 6 bodies Nagata controlled with his Rinnegan. The body of Yahiko, his deceased best friend, whose legacy of fighting for peace Nagato decided to honor by turning his corpse into a puppet he uses to cause mass destruction. Truly a great friend. Today, another Akatsuki meeting was going to be held, but unlike how he usually met with the other members, everyone would be physically present during this gathering since he didn't want anyone to spy on it this time. Due to Zetsu's ability to travel through the ground unhindered and his incredible capabilities as a sensor, it didn't take long for every member to be informed about this meeting. However, it still annoyed Pain greatly how significantly Yuna and Naruto's actions hampered Akatsuki's information flow. A few minutes later, Kakuzu and Hayden entered the meeting place, and as soon as Nagata heard Kakuzu threatening Hayden to kill him, while Hayden wanted to sacrifice Kakuzu to Jashin, he could already feel a slight headache. It was already hard enough to keep this band of misfits together when they didn't meet in person, but now that everyone would be present, Nagato half expected today's meeting to end in a massacre. While the duo was bickering, Kasame entered the room, and as soon as Hayden saw him, he started mocking him for failing to capture the Hachibai, resulting in the argument escalating even further, much to Nagato's headache. Somehow, I imagined world peace to be easier to achieve. Shortly after Kasame, Obito entered the room, who appeared to have more or less lost it by name as he was wildly dancing around, flailing his arms and calling himself Toby. Although Nagato knew about his weird split personality, he never thought it would be this severe. Finally, a considerable amount of paper started flooding into the room as a woman with blue hair formed next to Nagato, quickly followed by a humanoid-looking black figure coming out of the ground. Despite everyone being present, the bickering continued as Kasame and Haydn had drawn out their weapons and were ready to fight. Silence. Nagado's voice echoed through the cave as he flared his chakra to get everyone's attention. Although Kasame and Haydn were still glaring at each other, they at least kept their mouths shut, which was enough to satisfy Nagado. As soon as their meeting place quieted down, Nagado nodded his head in satisfaction and opened his mouth. The time has finally come for us to enact the last step of our plan. Although we don't have the full chakra of all the tailed beasts, a fragment of it is more than enough to start our plan, while their full chakra can be added in the aftermath. Now, only the Kyuubi's chakra is missing, which is why we have gathered here. Today. As soon as the Kyuubi was mentioned, constipated expressions appeared on the faces of quite a few people in the room. Nagado could clearly read the unwillingness to confront Yuna on Kakuzu's face, while Obito stopped his clown antics immediately when he thought about getting revenge against Naruto for humiliating him. Haydn immediately started telling everyone who didn't want to hear it how he would sacrifice the twins to his god, while Zetsu's gaze lingered on Nagado's Rinnegan for a short moment, considering whether he should snatch his eyes, dive into the earth, and be gone from the surface for the next 100 years. Seemingly unbothered by everyone's tumultuous emotions, Nagado pushed the conversation forward. Tomorrow evening, we will be attacking Konoha as a whole. Every one of us will participate in the attack, and our goal will be to capture the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, Naruto Uzumaki. Eerie silence covered the room that was soon replaced by a feeling of elation. One S-rank shinobi could potentially take out a small shinobi village, and now they would be assaulting Konoha with 7 at the same time. No one in the room had the confidence to attack Konoha and capture Naruto in a two-man team, maybe except for Nagado himself, but an all-out assault with the whole might of Akatsuki was a totally different matter. Most of the people in the room were confident that that would work out. Nagado saw the confidence return to the faces of his fellow Akatsuki members and nodded in satisfaction. As all of you know, Yuna Uzumaki carries a part of the Kyuubi as well, but she is of no concern for you. I will be her opponent while you go after Naruto Uzumaki and capture him. Now, even Kakuzu wore a happy expression since he wouldn't have to face Yuna and someone else would deal with her. Whether Nagado could defeat her or not, he had no idea, but what he knew was that as soon as he noticed that Yuna had the upper hand against him, he would flee instantly. Meanwhile, in the depth of the Uzumaki clan, a naked young woman with 3 other naked women clinging to her was playing around with a small ring, while a dangerous grin marred her face. Hee, I see, tomorrow evening, huh? The development of the sealing array that allows me to teleport to other people wearing one of these rings directly is about 70% done, but I guess I won't be needing that anymore. Finally, these cockroaches decided to come out of their tiny holes. This will be fun, Tilda. The young woman, Yuna, lazily got up from bed and stretched her back while slowly putting on her clothes with a thoughtful expression on her face. So much to do, and so little time. I guess I should inform Tsunade about this first while ensuring that the info we know about their attack doesn't leak. We don't want them to cancel their plans, after all. While Yuna was contemplating her next step, she noticed that Hinata, Anko, and Karen seemingly didn't even notice that she got up from their bed and were happily continuing to sleep, making her chuckle in amusement. Get up, you 3, a force capable of destroying a major village is about to attack Konoha. MHH tilde 5 more minutes, Yuna tilde. Hee, come on Hinata, this will be fun tilde. A tilde thank you for the reward, Yuna-sama tilde. A helpless expression appeared on Yuna's face when she got the sleepy answers from Hinata, Anko, and Karen. She thought about it for a short moment and did the only thing she could do in this kind of situation. She undressed again and went back to bed. She wasn't in a hurry, after all.